Thank you for tuning in to SynthWorld. You're listening to WSLR LP 96.5 FM Sarasota and WBPV LP 100.1 FM Bradenton. I'm your host, DJ Nomad, and I am thrilled to be here with, at the moment at least, Philippines-based kind of G-Funk, Vaporwave, Chillwave kind of artist, Maitro. Maitro, thank you for being here.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to have you here and dive into some of your music and what inspires the funkiness that really runs throughout so much of your diverse catalog. It really is quite varied. So first off, though, I want to get you on the map here. I know you're from the Netherlands from just chatting earlier. Right now you're in the Philippines. So I guess first off, what brought you to the Philippines? And then I know you're embarking on a new journey here somewhat soon. Where are you going to be going to next?
So the story goes like this. My dad had a Filipino girlfriend. Like 10 years ago, he invested in building apartments here just for average Filipino people. And there was like an apartment free for 3 months. And my dad asked if I wanted to go there because in the Netherlands, I can't live from my income from music. I have to work in logistics, but here I can just work on music and work on myself without worrying about having an extra job. So it's a nice opportunity. It's also like working on music and holiday together. So I stay here for 3 months. I have like 1 month and a half to go. And after that, I'm planning to go back, save some money. And then in the end of the year, I had this opportunity to go to South Africa. I have a friend there who has a dog shelter, and he asked me if I can stay there and help out, and then I can stay there for free. So there's like a new opportunity for me. So that's the next plan for me.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That sounds really fun, and I love how open you are to new adventures across the world. That's so cool. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 33 years old. Yeah.
Ah, same as me. I just turned
So,
33 last
oh,
week.
really?
Yep.
Yes. So I don't feel young, but I also don't feel old. I'm in the middle of it.
Are there any, if you look back, are there any kind of like particularly impactful moments that are worth noting that kind of led you down this path?
I can't think of like specific moments, but more like when I started uploading my music on SoundCloud and people start enjoying it. And like the biggest moment, to be honest, was in 2019 when I was invited to Electronicon 2. It was like my first live performance abroad. And then I thought like, okay, this is like really special and it was like one of my biggest moments in music. And I thought like, okay, this is like my destiny or something like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't know you played that. So for our listeners, can you just briefly explain what Electronicon is?
So Electronicon is like the first vaporwave festival outside of the internet, like the real life festival, where a lot of vaporwave artists or artists that are affiliated to vaporwave uh,
Mhm.
could perform. And I was invited, and it was like a dream come true. I came
Yeah.
to LA and I met a lot of cool people, and it was like my third live performance, so I was pretty nervous, but it all went well. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's a pretty remarkable first performance. Because as you mentioned, that's kind of a big deal in the vaporwave, kind of in the electronica world, that venue, that event. And yeah, so that's a pretty incredible first time. Are there any, since we're on the topic, are there any artists or, yeah, maybe producers that you met at that you particularly liked or connected with?
Yeah, it was funny. I met Catcorp, and he's also Dutch, so I had a fun conversation with him. I met FM Skyline. We talked about music, and yeah, that were like two artists I connected with. But there were so many people that I couldn't talk with any everybody. So, yeah, yeah, I read really cool people in general. So I was happy about that.
I bet that's a cool crowd. And yeah, I actually, FM Skyline was one of the first artists I interviewed on this show, and he was such a
Oh,
nice.
really?
Yeah, he came on my show in like late 2024, I think it was. And he was a very nice guy. I, couldn't recommend his music more, and would love to see him perform live as well. He's super talented. So yeah, I'm jealous. That's
Yeah,
cool.
he is.
Yeah. So now, speaking of some of these artists, as you are kind of getting yourself into producing this music, are there any like influences, artists that, kind of are really salient that come to mind that, really sh help maybe shape the Maitro sound?
So the artists where Maitro started, like at the beginning, were like I would say alternative instrumental hip hop, like MF Doom, J Dilla, Madlib. Those were the reason why I started with the Maitro sound.
Hmm.
And then later on, like I said before, on SoundCloud, I was like asked to join compilations of like instrumental hip hop or funk type like that. And there was also on a compilation artists like Flamingoses and Macross was also on there. I think Saint
Oh,
Pepsi
two
too.
great
And
artists.
there, that's where I first heard that future funk vaporwave sound, and it was kind of a little bit similar to a few beats I made that where I used like 80 samples. So there I was like a little bit hopping on the vaporwave, future funk wave, and I tried to like implement it with instrumental hip hop and 90s instrumental hip hop or hip hop R&B a little bit later on. I mostly only listen like only music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But of course, in those days, those producers were like a big influence.
It sounds like so much of what you listen to is indeed retro, 70s, 80s, 90s, but definitely not a surprise to hear about the hip hop influences. I mean, that's the thing I think that runs
Yeah,
through so much of your music is some sort of melding of that. But it's funny you bring that up. I did actually write down most of the kind of like subgenre-y sounds that I think your music encompasses as I, dove through your
yeah, yeah,
catalog.
definitely.
Um, so I'm gonna go for them real quick. So I wrote, here we go. Yeah, funky hip hop, vaporwave, lounge, G-funk, disco, lo-fi, chillwave, yeah, and even future funk. So because there's just so much variation there throughout your catalog. Again, I was really impressed by that. Um, or I guess the question is, why do you find, I know why I do, but why do you find this little corner of electronica so alluring? You know what I mean? Why do you keep coming back for more?
Because there's like less rules than certain other genres, and you can combine a lot of different genres I like, and I don't only have to make like instrumental hip hop, or I can just be creative, but still
Sure.
uh, find my own sound in all those different sounds. So, and that's what I like about more about the future funk and vaporwave scene.
I wanted to ask you about sampling, because obviously, definitely with Future Funk and definitely with Vaporwave, sampling is an important part of that style. Even though I've interviewed artists who don't sample at all, they make everything original, right? Even though it sounds like it's sampled, which is a whole nother thing, right? But I want to ask you because I I believe some of what you're pulling in your tracks are samples, some of it at least. So I'm just curious if I'm right about that. One, where are you getting your samples? And two, what is it about a sample that makes you know that it's right for like a specific track?
Um, so yeah, it's right. Most of my music is sample based, and I would say like 80%. I try to like combine it sometimes with own sounds that are in the same key, or make like composition that sounds like it's sampled.
Hmm.
And to be honest, most samples are from like YouTube, like obscure blogs. If I'm really honest, sometimes I get it from CDs. I also
Oh,
have
cool.
like in like 10, I think like 12 years ago, I was looking on rare blogs and I downloaded like a lot of stuff, like I think more than 50 GB of music, and a lot of those blogs are gone now, but I still have a lot of samples from that. So I'm still sampling music from what I downloaded then. And yeah, good question about what makes a sample good. I think I tried to find like samples that people like didn't notice uh, before and that fit to my sound and makes me move something inside of me, like, and I can add something, but I also want to like bring new music from the past in like a new way so that people can appreciate it again, like pass along good samples to a new generation. So I'm not just sampling to sample, but I also want to like yeah, like give all the music a new audience.
You're paying the funk forward, if you will.
Yeah. You could say that.
That's awesome. Never heard anybody word it like that, but I think that's a great way to put it, which is that a lot of these samples, especially artists like yourself who kind of focus on songs and samples that are a little more obscure, might never be seen or heard by, or certainly heard by, younger people and newer generations if people don't pull them out and highlight them, right? So I think that
Yeah.
there's something kind of beautiful about that. But it was definitely, yeah, around 2024-ish when I first stumbled upon the Dragon Ball Wave albums, those releases, which I thought were so cool because you really did such a great job of sticking to the theme of the game. Like I don't even know a ton about Dragon Ball, but I know Dragon Ball Z, but I know enough about it to know that you stayed pretty true to a lot of the sound, the sound palette from that game, those games. So, and yet you made them groovy, you made them fun, you made them dancey. Can you speak to maybe like the importance of that game? I'm assuming it's got some importance in your life and why, it inspired two follow-up releases.
When I was a kid, I was totally obsessed by Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And I was starting with making Vaporwave, and I noticed like nostalgia is like a pretty important aspect. And for me, it's also like
Yep.
nostalgia is important for me. It brings back like great memories. And I was like, why don't I make like my own soundtrack of Dragon Ball and experience how I experienced like Dragon Ball when I was a kid? So that was the idea between yeah, for Dragon Ball Wave. And yeah, it turned out to be one of my most successful project, and I didn't expect it at all. It was just something fun that I wanted to try out. So when I noticed that people enjoyed it, I decided to make like two more. I actually still working on a fourth one, but it's kind of difficult because to be honest, I really love like anime and Dragon Ball, but um, I want to focus more on other stuff to be honest, but I still want to make like a fourth edition for the fans of it.
It is an awesome set of albums. So anybody listening, check those out, especially if you're a Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z. I didn't know those were separate things.
Yeah, both.
Shows what a noob I am. Do you have any favorite? I hate to say characters, but yeah, like characters from those series.
I think Piccolo is my favorite one, and Goku. Those are my two favorites.
And I think I was a little more into Pokemon, which I feel like Dragon Ball was kind of almost like a rival to. Dragon Ball was probably the cooler of the two, if I had to guess, especially like from true anime people. Um, but I don't know. That's just my sense of that, even though I don't have a lot of stake in.
I think they I think they both just as cool, to be honest. But I understand what you mean. Like, the more like the tough kids in like elementary school were more like into Dragon Ball, and Pokemon was a little bit more for the nerds. But I consider myself also a nerd. So, but I love both.
Piggybacking on those albums because I think this is relevant to those albums, but specifically like Mellow Bumps, right? Like even Escapades. I just think I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong maybe, but I feel like there's quite a few people or producers who are afraid of releasing albums with or even compilations with like lots of tracks that are some of which are really short, right? You know, like minute long, less than a minute long, right? And so, but I've always
Yeah,
honestly loved artists that do that. There's a lot of artists I know that do that, and I just want to know, I want to hear from someone like yourself. What do you think are some of like maybe the benefits of doing that, if you will?
I like the shorter tracks because they cause a certain vibe, and when you make it longer, it's like too repetitive or something like that. And it can also be like a feeling on an album, like a skit or like an intermission track. And to be
Yep.
honest, artists like I don't know if you're familiar with Bones and Whole Squad, like the underground hip hop guy from was popular in 2014, and I noticed that he also had like 1 minute tracks, and I was like, why don't I do that? Because I had a lot of demos that were basically like finished, but I didn't felt like making it like the typical tracks just 2 to 3 minutes long. I thought it was finished, but first I was doubting myself, like, yeah,
I do want to talk about for a second at least some of the, more difficult parts of doing what you do because I mean, you talked about streaming services getting saturated, right? Streaming services not adequately compensating artists. AI. I mean, there's just so much going on. Being an artist in itself is a
yeah.
difficult thing to do, but it's becoming even harder as a modern musician for so many reasons. So I'm just, as a person who's been at it for a while and is now, still steeped in it, what would you say you have found to be like the hardest aspect about being an artist in the modern world?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult question. But I would say to not compare yourself with other artists or feeling too old or whatever, and just do you, be creative and enjoy the ride, because you see, like, you can see literally every stream, and I think when you're just starting and you put something out and you only have like, would say, 100 streams in 1 month, and you see artists that you like that have way more than that, can be discouraging. But that shouldn't be discouraging. But before the internet, people couldn't even see that stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
think there was more focus on like the creation itself. So for newer artists, I think you shouldn't worry about that too much and just enjoy what you're making. And in these days of AI, just yeah, try to be yourself and express yourself through music, and not like, you can take inspiration, but not try to be the other artist, like not copy them too much. You can be inspired by them. Just I think it's important to find like your unique selling point, and just put your music out there, and don't worry about much about the result. Uh, just put it out there and see where it goes, and don't have too much expectation, and just yeah, continue on having fun with making music.
I'm curious, top three, you're on a desert island, rest of your life. retro video games and consoles, and that can include, Game Boy, PSP, just about anything there. What would you say are like those three games and consoles that you would take with you? And I would say, I'll
That's a
clarify,
good question.
I'd say just to clarify, to set a boundary, I'd say PS2 era and back, just so that we're not getting too modern.
I would say for games, Tony Hawk Pro Skater Underground 2,
Nice.
Roller Coaster Tycoon,
Hmm.
and GTA Vice City. And for
Nice. Yeah.
consoles, it will be all Nintendo. To be honest, I wasn't a big gamer myself, but I had a GameCube in the past, and that was definitely my favorite one. So to go for GameCube, I would go for a Game Boy Advance
Hmm.
and a Nintendo DS. I'm not sure if that's retro already, but those three.
I'll give you the DS. I think that might have come out around the PS or like just slightly after PS2 era,
Yeah,
something like that. I'll give you that one though. Those are pretty cool. Great answers though. Thank you. That was honestly one of the best Desert Island answers I've got. Out of the artists that you have worked with, are there any, uh, I guess I'd say similar artists that are in the same kind of realm? Because I think for whatever reason, artists that are in your part of the retro wave spectrum don't get as much attention, even in an area of music that doesn't get a lot of attention. For whatever reason, I just feel like don't get a ton of love because you're kind of in between vaporwave and like G-funk and hip hop. But it's anyway. Are there any other artists that you know of that are similar that you think deserve a shout out?
that's really hard to say because most artists that I work with are either like vaporwave or they like instrumental hip hop. But
Yeah.
I gotta give a shout out to C Rich. He's a instrumental hip hop producer, and he really makes great stuff. Goes to a lot of like live beat battles and performances. And it's really grinding, and he makes great stuff. So I gotta give a shout out to him. But here he's not into the vaporwave, real more into instrumental hip hop. But from what I'm seeing, I think he deserves a shout out.
I think there's I think there's a lot of the vaporwave scene that's influenced by early, like 90s, late 80s, mid 90s hip hop. So I think it's cool that you're maybe a bridge
Yeah.
between the two, areas of music. Because I think there's not just a lot of overlap in style and ideas and influence, but also like culture and stuff like that too. So can you speak to generally what's your production process like? Do you have a DAW that you use? I would assume you're probably using a DAW. And then if there's any equipment, VSTs, analog synthesizers, drum machines, if there's any equipment you want to like spotlight that really is important to your work.
So basically, when I use DHW that I use FL Studio, I'm just the most comfortable with it, and I can just emulate all my ideas with it. And if I use samples, I definitely first looking for the sample. Then I mostly just chop it up, twitch it, pitch it, and then I add drums and sometimes synthesizers and try to make like a composition for it. And when I'm not doing sample-based stuff, I look up certain chords, maybe from uh, existing songs, and then I start just messing around with it. I add a bass, drum, snare, and synths. And for VSTs, I'm not super experienced with like the world of VSTs, but I know my things around VST, and I'm basically just use stock in VSTs, and I'm layer them a lot so I can create my own sound, and then I add like reverb. I play a lot with flangers and phasers. That's a
Sure.
little bit like my style.
I know you just recently you just had a release that came out. I believe it was yeah, last Friday. Car Showroom 3, the third edition of that album. Such a cool concept. I'm a big concept artist person. I love that the whole the like sexiness of the like the cars, the sports cars and everything from that era,
Yeah,
and like the like combination of like hip hop and like sex and stuff like that. There's this whole, almost like you could touch it that if you remember, if you were around alive at that time, that existed from the yeah like the mid early 90s through the early 2000s. Um, can you talk about just for a moment where your personal inspiration came for the car showroom series?
so that's actually a funny story because I was at a childhood friend of mine at his home, and he was playing a video game where you could make like a lot of stuff, like similar to Minecraft. And he was into cars, and he was making a car showroom. And then suddenly came the idea. I had like a Dragon Ball wave, and I thought like I thought about the car showroom, and I was like, I like retro cars, like how they look and all. I don't know like really much about it, if I'm like really honest. But then I was like, why I don't make like a team project where I could, sorry, my alarm went off. I don't know why, but where I could imagine, like if I would make music for like retro cars in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if there was like a commercial, and I looked for a home for like my vapor trap project, so like trap combined with vaporwave, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought car showroom would be perfect for that. So it was like a home for my project that were a mix of vaporwave and hip hop, trap, and like southern hip hop
And like
influences. So
and
that's
like
how the
well, and there's like R&B and kind of like soul music too as well, like little
yeah,
influences
yeah,
there.
yeah, for
You definitely
sure.
get that southern feel to it. I mean, it's great. Yeah. Also just really cool because you're from the Netherlands, right? So like
Yeah,
to 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 think about how far the influence from the place where those cultures and that music and those styles originated from to go all the way across the Atlantic into Europe to into Scandinavia basically and to influence some young
yeah,
kid. I mean, I just think that's such a cool thing. I feel like you again, if you showed up I feel like to just about any block party or cookout here in the South, I feel like they would so vibe with that. And that's such a perfect segue into my next question, which is about your most recent release, which is Car Showroom 3, right? The third edition of that. There's just so many cool
yeah.
samples in it. I feel like it's really like um the peak of that series. You've really like mastered that style, that vibe, that feel. Lots of cool sounds and also a lot of variety. It was one of the albums I got the chance to listen basically the entire way through. And I feel like that could be that could be the soundtrack to every pool party this summer, honestly. So, I guess on a deeper level, maybe, is there something what is it? I know you said that you make this for yourself, but what is it you're hoping other people get out of these just, endlessly funky and groovy tunes that you pump out?
Uh, First of all, thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate it. And what I try most is like combine like the old school flavors with like newer sounds, and bring that to to my audience. And also I want to resonate to, because most of my listeners are from like the vaporwave future funk side, and I also try to find more listeners that are more from the hip hop side, and that's also like a goal for car showroom. But I also wanted that the vaporwave people also enjoy it. So
Hmm.
yeah, mainly just combining the old with the new and make something that I can listen to in 10 years, but also other people.
The retro wave scene is incredibly diverse and has a really wide spectrum and touches on just about every style and sound palette that you could think of. But the one area that has, I don't want to say lacked, but has been slow to kind of catch up is what you do, which is that kind of like, you know, half flirting with the hip hop and the R&B and the rap world. Um,
Yeah.
the scene needs that. The scene needs that for a variety of reasons, not just one reason. And I think you're all I'm getting at is the colors that you're adding to the collage of retro wave music is really important. So keep that up. Hopefully, if it's not car showroom, it's something similar to that in the future. I know you're working on other stuff, but I hope you kind of continue down that road. You talked about Electronicon in 2019, first performance. I didn't find, I don't, maybe I'm in the wrong, I need to be on the right subreddit channel or something, but I couldn't find many or any really, I think, live videos of you outside of that. I don't even know if I found that, but do you, outside of that performance, do you perform live, you know, currently or?
To be not currently. It's been a while I performed, and I only had like you can count it on one hand the performance that I had. But I know how to DJ a bit and to make a show. But I don't have many experience with it. But I definitely want to do that more in the future for sure. But it's just hard to find like venues, especially in the Netherlands, and for US venues, it's also hard because the traveling expenses, either on my side or either if they want to let me perform. So that's also a tricky thing. But I definitely want to do that. I'm actually planning to go to the US in like next year maybe and just travel around. And meanwhile, while I travel to like bigger cities, I just maybe find like small venues where I can perform. That's like the idea I had in mind.
Oh, well, please
So
come to
yeah,
St. Petersburg, Florida and play with us. That would be incredible. We would be so honored.
I actually worked with the rapper from St. Petersburg, like in my early days. He unfortunately now died, but rest in
Oh,
peace. Trey
sorry to hear
McRae
that.
was
Yeah.
his name. But so I wanted to go there before, so I definitely want to visit if I can.
I just realized I did the same mistake I did with Windows, my last guess, which is I forgot to ask you one of my more important questions till the very end, which is how did you come up with the name Maitro? Where does that come from?
So there was like we had like an electronic popular radio station here in the Netherlands. So there was like a competition where you can submit your track. And I was really bad at it. Like the track really sucked, but I submitted myself, and me and my friends at high school, we were all voting with different accounts. So it became a track in the top three, and they would play all the music that was in the top three. So my music came on the radio, and I was like, yeah, I have to find a name. So I had like a really cheesy name because my last name is Meesters, and it means in English master. So I thought like a variant, why not call myself Maestro, but write in a little differently. But I'm a pretty clumsy person, and I forgot the letter S while I was submitting it. So at the radio, they were like announcing my track, and it was like, "Here's Maitro." With the track was called "Be Static," a random name, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's just go for Maitro instead of Maestro," which I eventually liked.
Well,
So yeah,
I'm just about out of time with you, Maitro. I hope to chat with you again. This has been such a pleasure. But for all the SynthWorld listeners who are just now getting introduced to some of your music and what you do, give them for a moment, give them a rundown of where they can go to get more Maitro in their life.
So they can go to Bandcamp. I'm planning actually to release there more and also like exclusive Bandcamp releases. So mitro.bandcamp.com and just on streaming services.
Thank you for listening, everybody. A part of the synth world universe, the synthverse. That was Philippines, currently based and kind of generally Neanderthal, Netherlands based. Um, Chillwave, Vaporwave, G-Funk, Future Funk, just all around funk man. Mike or Mikael, aka Maitro, such a great artist. Check him out, and you know, thank you so much again for your time. And until next time I see you, stay retro.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Have a great day.